Hi, my name is William Allen. This is my Module 5 for EDL 856, Understanding My Community, Sacred Heart Colby. So taking a sociological inventory, many in Colby are farmers or work in an agricultural field. We are very much in rural northwest Kansas, and farming is a big thing. I-70, though, however, provides the town with some more opportunities to have amenities than other small towns. We have a Walmart, we have lots of different restaurants, things like that. It is a fairly close-knit community within our Catholic Church, and Colby itself has that small town feel. Our leadership it starts at our superintendent, and then our priest, then our principal, and then our school council, and I'll explain some of that later on. And our parish overall is pretty financially stable, but it can fluctuate with harvest and other things. Some of our customs and traditions that we have at Sacred Heart, we do look out for one another. We celebrate and attend the Mass, daily Mass twice a week, as we are a Catholic school. And another big tradition that we have is the 5th graders get to go on a class trip to Denver, where we check out some Catholic sites and attend a professional sports game, whether it be hockey or basketball, lacrosse maybe even sometimes, and get them some fun experiences while we're there as well. Excuse me. We are very fortunate to have so many people involved at Sacred Heart School, especially the parents and parishioners. Farming, as I mentioned before, has an influence over our community. About 80% of those that attend Sacred Heart are Catholic. Within the school, we have other varied Protestant religions, and especially amongst the teachers and students, the teachers who are non-Catholic actually at this moment are a higher number than those that are Catholic. Colby itself has several different churches. The curriculum is driven now by the diocese, so we just became a district with the other Catholic schools in the Diocese of Salina, so west of Salina in Kansas. But the teachers still currently have a pretty good say in what we do and do not purchase and what we go with, but it's starting to flip. Change is not always received well by teachers or other members of the community. We've done the same thing for years and years. Why change if it isn't broken? That kind of mentality at times. So our population, Colby itself, the town, is a little under 6,000 people. Sacred Heart's population, our enrollment, preschool through 5th grade is around 120 students, and that doesn't change too much over the years typically. The girls outnumber the boys just by a little bit. Many parents to our students have college degrees and are out working in the community, but not all of them. Others are farmers who maybe didn't attend college, stay-at-home moms, those kind of situations. Many who live here in Colby have lived here their whole lives. There's a lot of family names that have been here generation and generation. Younger families are returning to Colby. They're coming back and raising families here. I wouldn't call Colby young, though. Jobs tend to remain fairly stable. Moves don't seem to be too common around Colby. Within our school, we have all English speakers and just 2 families of a Hispanic background, so we are not very diverse within our school. Colby itself, especially with the college, is a little more diverse, but not greatly. Some of our communication channels that we have our school website, of course, and our Facebook page that we use pretty frequently and we're encouraged to use. Other than that, we rely heavily on our church bulletin that comes out weekly. It reaches a lot of our parishioners, so if anything important or upcoming needs to get in there, it finds its way into the bulletin. Some more traditional means of communication that we have, phone calls, email. We use a Remind app to communicate with families, texting app. And as far as where people get their information from the community as a whole, we have KGCR, a radio station, a local Christian radio station that we often will communicate with to communicate important dates to the community, and other radio stations like 100.3 The Ride that we will also give dates and such. And the Colby Free Press, we do have a newspaper that comes out weekly. I would not say it's people's main source of information and news, but it is one that they do use. occasionally, and so we often, not often, but sometimes we will be in touch with them as well. Some different community groups that exist in Sacred Heart and surrounding area. We have our Home and School Council, which is very similar to our PTA, to a PTA. They are responsible for major purchases for classrooms and curriculum. We have an allotment that we receive from them each year for, or as teachers, that we can use for our classroom. And we also, whenever we make major purchases in curriculum, they're usually the ones that pay for it. We also have a finance council that's in charge of this overall school budget. We have school council and diocesan offices that determine the policies that we have and the curriculum. More so the council than the diocese at the moment, but again, it's kind of shifting. As far as groups that students are involved in, we have 4-H, we have different sports opportunities and club opportunities. We have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and as far as the safety goes for these kids when they are out and about, and especially when they are at Sacred Heart, anyone who works with them, anyone who works with the youth in any kind of capacity has to be screened, are subject to a background check every 5 years, and they have to be trained in our diocesan policy and through our program, and we have a safety coordinator that takes care of that. Some of our leadership that exists at Sacred Heart. So as I mentioned before, we're part of the Diocese of Salina. So at the head of the diocese is the bishop, and then next in line would be the superintendent, Dr. Compagnon, who is over all the schools. Then would be our local parish priest, Father Rich, is largely in charge of our school and makes a lot of final decisions. Then our building leadership, Mr. Severson this year. We have assistant principal this year, new, Mrs. Kennedy. And we also, have a school council, which is just an advisory council, but they do tend to have some influence on policy especially and hiring situations. They help hire staff. And then, like I mentioned before, Home and School we rely on for funding. They organize some of our bigger fundraisers, and they're great to work with. Our community leaders' characteristics. So if I'm being honest, I have not worked closely or seen others work too closely with community leaders in the short time that I've been here, but the ones that I have seen us associate with would be the business association. We have a small town business association, and we bring in members to speak and give demonstrations to our students on a fairly regular basis. We also work with the fire department and law enforcement to come in and work with safety with our kiddos. Excuse me. Excuse me. And then we also have our church leadership. So different subcommittees and leaders within the church that we work with to sponsor or collaborate on projects, especially when it involves the church and the school. Our economic conditions, as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, agriculture definitely affects our economy. Businesses come and go, but most of them are fairly stable. The turnover in our school itself is very high. We, as a Catholic school, small Catholic school, we have very low pay and very low benefits, so it is hard to attract teachers to come, and especially harder to make them come and stay in rural western Kansas unless they have some kind of family ties, are desperately for seeking a job when we cannot compete with the public schools that surround us. The community turnover is not quite as drastic. The cost of living here in Colby is relatively low. The median household income falls about $48,000. Unemployment rate is only 1.6%, which is fairly low. But the poverty line is, people in poverty are about 11%, which is a little higher. As far as economic developments that are happening in the community, recently it was voted and passed to build a new development, the Recreation Center for Colby, which is currently in construction. So that is exciting and up and coming. Our political structure. So because we are a small private school, we do not always, or are not always, closely tied with the politics that surround us, because we are private and we are funded and run by the church and through the diocese, not publicly funded. So it is nice we can dodge a lot of the politics that surround public schools. However, saying that, we cannot match the finances or resources, like I mentioned before, that public schools do provide. But we do have services, so we have SPED and other services like speech that they do receive through Colby Public Schools. They're just bused there either daily or however often that they need to be. They just go 5 minutes away down to the public school, over to the public school. We are an accredited school, so we do still have to follow certain regulations. We still get to participate in those fun state assessments, other things like that. Some social tensions. This again was another harder slide for me. I've lived in Colby for a little over 2 years, so I still have a limited knowledge and understanding of some of the social dynamics. I do know that farmers and specific families do own a lot of businesses in large chunks of Colby, and they do have pretty great influence at times. Within Sacred Heart, there's been some tension between Catholic teachers and non-Catholic teachers about different policies, and there's been a few incidents, but overall, I haven't seen a lot of social tensions that I feel other schools are dealing with and other communities are dealing with. Some extra sources of information that we have for parents and other family members and community members. We have Power School that can update them on academics. We do surveys of both parents and students in regards to the school. We hold school council and home and school meetings, school council meetings, on a monthly basis. Those minutes are emailed out to all the teachers to keep us updated, and they are available to any others who are interested. And always anyone is welcome to attend these meetings if they have any ideas or concerns or just want to stay updated on what's happening. Power structures, as I mentioned before, our chain of command is pretty much what we have to follow. There's not a lot of other elements that are entailed or other groups that have any undue influence on the Catholic school as a whole. We do have subcommittees within the church that are responsible for different programs and events. But the majority of the time it follows a typical chain of command as far as policies and curriculum and other dealings. So knowing some multicultural issues, or sometimes lack thereof, as a Catholic school we have a very Catholic culture. We just implemented and adopted a dress code starting a few years back, and it's more close to the final, tis the season for colds, closer to the final draft of what it will be. That was met with some resistance, as some people felt it was more traditional Catholic school, kind of stereotypical feel, but I think we're finally moving past that and people are mostly on board with that. We do attend Mass or have days off on holy days of obligation, so we very much follow the Catholic liturgical calendar, and we eat meatless lunches every Friday. So as a form of penance in the Catholic Church, we do not eat meat here even at school on Fridays. And we get to celebrate those religious and very Catholic holidays without having to worry about opinions, politics, anything like that. We do not have to be politically correct. We can go all out for Christmas, Easter, All Saints' Day, Lent, and Advent, and others. So we do measure the public opinion. Parents and families, like I said, are invited to attend council meetings if they have things to share. We send out semi-annual surveys to parents that ask questions on how they feel about the culture of the school, different items that are targeted, such as the prospect of implementing or adding on a 6th grade, which was met with a pretty resounding no. People were not interested in, interestingly enough. And informally seeking outside opinions through just different conversations, and a lot of times those opinions, because we are so small, seek you out. So very much parents and other family members and community members come to us. As I mentioned before, we have small class sizes and an open door policy, so it's pretty easy to access both our teachers and our leadership. We do formal surveys as well as those meetings, and people, for better or for worse, they will go to the priest or other councils to air their grievances or to make suggestions. So sometimes they'll bypass the teachers and the principals and go straight to the priest or council who have a little more power. And these are some of the sources that I use. Thank you for watching my presentation.